You are now listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc, sharing insights through real, honest, and practical ways to improve your communication and relationships. Featuring your hosts, Dr. Pamela Kreiser, Meredith Edwards-Nagel, and Teighlor Polendo.
Welcome back to another episode of our Family Survival Kit. We are here in the kitchen, ready to talk mechanics with you about the holidays, and today we're going to get into something that all of us have experienced, and that is guilt trips.
Yeah.
So I'm TalkDoc, this is Meredith, this is Teighlor. Together we do a podcast called Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc, and this is part of our series to help you survive the holidays with your family. Now, here's the thing. When you are thinking about surviving something, the first thing that we do is we think about the journey. And so when you and I are packing a bag or preparing to go on a trip, we try to figure out what we're going to need on that trip. And so one of the things we have to figure out is what the journey is. So as you're thinking about the holidays, and we've already done Thanksgiving, now we're headed into even more holidays, think about what journey you're going to be on. And as you start thinking about that journey, then you'll know what to pack, right? Now, when I think about the journey, I also think about the weather. You know, the weather, like if it's going to be stormy. And that's kind of where we talk about today's topic, the guilt trips. Because let's be honest, some of our families are kind of stormy. They have a lot of guilt messages that they exchange, and you're heading right into that storm. So the question is then, what protective gear do you need to be ready for that storm? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So when we think about the topic, we want to think about what we need to do to prepare for the journey, and also think about what we need to pack. So let's start, though.
Oh, God. It's coming.
Yeah.
With a quiz.
We're going to start with a quiz because we've never done that before. So, and I want to make sure you don't cheat. So I'm just going to have to hold the cards back here. Okay, so we've had Thanksgiving. So this should be easy for you because you've already celebrated Thanksgiving. Okay.
Never is.
So here's the question. On Thanksgiving Day in the United States, there are 3 main programs that are popular to watch on television.
Oh,
And the question is, what can you name 2 of the top 3 programs that
football
run?
game.
You have to name 2.
Well, I just wanted to get that one in there, Peter.
Okay.
Football.
Okay. That was a really great showing. Okay, awesome.
Don't they play a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving or something on something?
Cannot confirm that. Can you name
3 things?
2 of the 3 top programs in the United States?
On television on Thanksgiving.
Yes, things you watch on
Isn't there a parade?
Macy's Day Parade.
Oh, great. Cool. No, that's Christmas.
So there's a lot of cheating going on here. Okay.
No, I'm going with football, and we'll just do Charlie Brown, the Thanksgiving one.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think football and a parade.
A parade? Can you name that parade?
It's not the...
Didn't I just tell you?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, wait, it really is a Macy's Day Parade? Oh,
Yeah.
So I get to
Okay. So,
Okay,
so is it possible for you both to lose the quiz?
To both lose?
Wait, can we pause? Can I think of another thing? What do people want? I mean,
What do they
We're
watch?
just
3
better
main
than
programs.
everyone else because we're spending intentional time with
yeah, I'm spending time with
our
my
loved
family.
ones, so we
Okay.
don't watch
I'm sorry,
television.
I wish I could spend time watching this guy. Sorry, I don't know the 2.
Okay, we're missing the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Its official title.
Oh, okay.
But you had that. And we also have the National Dog Show.
What?
That's very big in my household. That's the #1 show that we watch. Very important family tradition to prepare Thanksgiving and watch the National Dog Show.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I think
It's very much a thing.
I feel like I'm
grandparents
missing out
used to
though because
watch
it
it.
sounds really cool.
And what we do is we watch the dogs parade and we pick out people we know that look like the dogs.
that sounds like a better way to
Wowzers.
watch that.
It's a really good time. It's kind of shocking how some people really do resemble certain dogs.
That is funny.
So, okay, so you both lost on that one.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a great one because this is one that people talk about a lot. On average, through the whole holidays, on average, how much weight do people gain?
20.
Okay, so here's your choices.
Oh.
You ready? 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 1 pound, 3 pounds.
On average,
On average.
5.
3.
3, 5, average 1. Isn't that crazy?
That's it?
Some
Yeah,
people
so
are
it's-
gaining no weight, and that's balancing out for
Well, that's true, but it's just funny because it's actually a widely held myth that we gain weight at the holidays, and a lot of people say that we move a lot during the holidays too, because we have to go places and do things, and so what's our net gain? It's usually under a pound.
Wow.
I know. Okay, so quiz totally not going well today.
Well.
Okay, so we're going to do a tiebreaker because you both have 0.
Okay, so I'm going to do this.
I know. It's terrible, isn't it? Okay. All right, so when are consumers most likely to begin their holiday shopping in the United States? Okay, so this is as of September 2021. Okay, so it's in this year, right?
Is it multiple choice?
It is multiple choice. Oh, okay, so the question is the answers are A, before October ends, B, before Thanksgiving, C, on or after Thanksgiving, D, sometime in December, E, in January.
I'm saying sometime in December.
Okay.
For this year.
For this year, so when do people on average start their holiday shopping?
I think it's before Halloween.
Okay, and that is correct. Before October ends.
What? I thought there was
43%.
no way that was right.
43%.
Who are all you people being that organized?
But December, Meredith, really? That's kind of
late.
late.
I love my family and friends, but yeah, sometimes I wait that long.
Okay, all right.
I'm not the best gift person.
That's not true.
Okay, but don't feel bad. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. All those messages that you and I exchange that are guilty. So let's talk about guilt messages a little bit. Okay. Some of them come from this very location. So you might have noticed we're in the kitchen. And one of the things we know is that some people who work in the kitchen send guilt messages to those who are not in the kitchen. Kind of an interesting thing. So let's back up the train a little bit and talk about this type of person who's often in the kitchen called a heavy communicator. Now, a heavy communicator, we've talked about this idea. The heavy communicator is the person who tends to be the centerpiece of the social network. So what does that mean? That heavy communicator is the person that everyone runs the plans through, that organizes what kind of things we're eating, that organizes who's coming at what time. They tend to be the center of the network. Now, if you lined up a bunch of heavy communicators and you said, okay, so I'm going to get 100 of them together. No, they're not heavy. They're not heavy. They're like heavy communicators, right? Different.
Like everyone talking over each other.
Yeah. So if you lined up 100 of them, in the United States, 85% of them would be mom, actually. So it's very common for mom. Percentage. Yeah, very common for mom to be the heavy communicator. So mom does an important role. She knows whether you like ketchup, whether you hate mayonnaise, when the kindergarten parade is. She knows where your blue suit is, and she knows what size shoes you wear when she goes out to get you dress shoes. She knows all that information. So often it is mom in the United States who plays this role. Now, does that mean dad doesn't play a role? Not at all. So if you come from a household where that's not true, that mom is not the heavy communicator, that doesn't mean anything. It just means that's how your culture and your family experience has gone. So one of the things we want to talk about is this idea of the heavy communicator, because we know that the heavy communicator often will tell you something. They will tell you they feel overworked. Okay, and so that is something that would be typical of out of the mouth of the heavy communicator, would be they're overworked. Now let's fast forward to the holidays, or even think of the one you just celebrated and say, okay, when we're thinking about that holiday, did the heavy communicator say things about having to do all the work, make all the food, do all the plans? It's pretty common for the heavy communicator to complain. Now, if you think about the whole family system as a network, one of the things you would notice is that heavy communicator's in the middle, and there's people that we consider isolates on the outside, right? Okay, so the isolates are people who maybe don't do much of the work, and they might complain about how controlling the heavy communicator is. And the heavy communicator might complain, not necessarily in a functional way, but might complain about how the isolate sits. Okay, so you might have someone who maybe does all the food preparation, and they'll say, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could, watch TV like you do all day?
I've heard that. You
heard that one? What else have you heard?
It's always things like, I wish I could do what that person's doing, which is just relaxing, or I wish I wasn't so tired, or I wish I had time to get ready, but I'm busy cooking.
So a guilt trip is sort of like a dysfunctional way of communicating maybe your needs or your preferences. And usually it's around telling someone they haven't done something or they should be doing something, right? But it's a
But
dysfunctional.
not directly doing,
Oh, yeah.
I need your help.
Yeah. So
I
it's
wish
like,
I wasn't so overworked right now.
right. So you have the heavy communicator saying things like, well, someone had to make the dinner. Someone has to keep this family together. Right? Someone, you like that one? Someone has to be the one to do whatever, fill in the blank, right? Okay. And so then the question becomes, if that's the storm that you're facing, if that's the storm that you're going into on this journey into the holidays, we have to kind of call it out and say, what does it sound like? So we hear things like, I don't have the luxury, or, and it's usually toward people that maybe aren't doing something, but it presents an interesting question like, what is it that you want them to do? But that usually the person communicating this guilt trip doesn't, they sort of do it in a passive aggressive guilting kind of way.
Yeah.
So like I had this one situation where it was Mother's Day and I had young kids at the time and a friend was over and she said, oh, why don't you guys go out for like a glass of wine or something and I'll watch the kids for you. And I said, sure, that'd be great. Like, that sounds great. Are you sure? Oh yeah. Friend says, no problem. So I go upstairs to get ready. And I come back to overhear my friend saying to my children, oh, I'm a mother too, but I don't have the luxury of going out right now and doing something on my own time.
Oh, no.
After they offered.
So I hear this. So I think, how am I going to handle this without, so I said, we don't have to go. She said, no, it's okay. Like, it's fine.
That's a guilt trip.
Yeah. Well, it's because, and I was like, wow, I don't have to even be doing this. This was your idea.
Yeah.
And so I said, do you want us not to go? Oh, no, it's okay.
Now
I'll just do it for you.
So now you're going to have a good time when it's that person's idea, but now you feel bad for doing it.
But what do they want? Like, do they want you to not do it, or do they want you to do it, but then just feel bad about doing it?
Well, that, I don't know. I think that's a good question. So, but the thing is it's very hard not to ride on the guilt trip. It's very hard not to get sucked in. So you could say, well, you should have been smarter and like kept yourself out of that. But you go and have that glass of wine and you're feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of something.
Yeah.
I was talking through all of getting ready for this series. I've been asking some friends genuinely about things that they've experienced. And I have this friend and she lives far away from her family. And so she'll do holidays with whether it's someone she's in a relationship with or when she wasn't, maybe just friends and family nearby, but didn't always have the luxury to pay for holiday plane tickets somewhere else, and also didn't have the luxury to always pay for her parents to fly over. And there's always this one parent of hers that she would say, this is the nice holiday I had. And that one parent would always say, oh, I wish I could afford to come out there to see you. And then my friend would always, like, she never knew, like, well, am I supposed to now enjoy the rest of my holiday? You're my parent. I was trying to tell you that I'm okay, over here on my own, far away from home.
Right.
But instead is left like, well, should I have, instead of done that, saved my money to fly this one parent out now? Like, or what should I have done, And there's this constant, and it's interesting because that started when this friend of mine was like 18 when she first moved away, and now she's like in her late 30s, and it's the same story that many years later. It's like, this is a nice thing I'm doing with my in-laws, and then it's like, oh, I wish I could, I wish I was able to do that for you, or I wish I could fly you out here, I wish I could be there with you. And it's because the parents are divorced, and so there's this one parent that does it more often, and it's hard to see her go through that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And hard to not get sucked into the same pattern, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and hard to not get bitter, like to just be like, I'm not even going to tell you the fun I'm having because I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a friend, we hadn't seen each other in a long time, so we were catching up, and she was being like respectful, getting all these calls, but ignoring them because she was with me. And then she got a text from the parent who was trying to contact her. Should I change my emergency contact because you never answer your phone?
Oh.
Whoa.
That is cold.
Oh, sorry.
Dang.
Sorry, just messed you up really hard with your parent. But
So in your survival kit, you need a heavy jacket for that message.
It's like a raincoat.
I don't know if they were joking or serious, but I was like, it's a little harsh.
Wow.
Dang.
Yeah, it's funny because, and we've talked a little bit about this idea that when we think about family, we're full of these what we call non-voluntary relationships. So when we think about interacting with family, these are not the people we pick to be with. They just are our family.
Stuck with them.
Yeah. So you pick your partner, right? And you pick your friends. Yeah. And now we're back with people we didn't pick. And you're born into it. Like I'm the youngest, so we're born into the whole thing's already done.
Yeah.
You're just the last added on.
Cherry on top, I like to say. It's the youngest.
That's right.
Of course you guys would say that.
Yeah, of course we would. So the thing that's interesting about that is I find, just from my experience, that when you're speaking with a non-voluntary relationship member, a lot of times they feel like more permission to say something like on that phone thing.
Yeah.
Where you would never say that to a friend.
Yeah.
Because they might actually not be your friend.
Yeah.
At the end.
You would just celebrate them if they're having a nice holiday.
to.
You wouldn't like complain about your situation, or you wouldn't, I don't know, all that kind of stuff.
So I think like some of the meanest things we say maybe are with the people in our families.
You don't have to try as hard because they'll always be related to you.
They'll always be there.
You could break the relationship, but
People break the relationship, but they'll always be related to you. Like
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing because I don't know if that permits more dysfunctional behavior. I sort of think it does.
I think so.
You know. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So I guess we got to solve this then, right? What do we do?
I know. I was going to ask you what are some like concrete examples, but as we're talking about it, it does make me think of previous episodes we have talked about, and I feel like a lot of times, just in most things we discuss, boundaries seem to come back. And the one that specifically sticks in my head is the one about managing difficult people. And I love in the intro you discuss that these sometimes difficult people that cross those boundaries for us, or that give us these guilt trips, they're emotionally expensive. And I'm like, oh, I can think of some emotionally expensive people that are non-voluntary people in my life. But,
that's right.
What are some like
Well, on the boundary, I think on the boundary thing, one of the things that we've talked about so often on the podcast is understanding what's your responsibility and what isn't.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that related to your example with the friend who has the parents that are not together.
Yeah.
And kind of going, and is it that friend's responsibility to patch everything up? And you kind of ask yourself, like, what belongs to me? What do I actually own that I need to care about? And what is being pushed on me that maybe I don't need to care about anymore?
Okay.
It's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, didn't you talk about that? We discussed that too in that episode about managing the difficult people, is that the boundaries, if they're people that you want to keep relationship with, aren't about controlling that person, because we can't do that, but it's about knowing what we need and how to be clear about those things, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think that's something, I know in our next episode, we're going to talk about bad behavior. So that's a little shout out to check us out next week. But I think that it goes to that idea of just deciding what you need for nourishment. I mean, that's a survival kit kind of thing, to say, how am I going to stay nourished and how am I going to stay protected? And the boundaries do the protection. And maybe the first decision is, what do I need to keep nourished?
Yeah.
I think a lot about stonewalling with this, because I think, especially maybe I think I might be a heavy communicator.
I think you are.
I think I am. And
I think it all goes through Teighlor, everyone.
Yeah.
But I was when my family was growing up. So.
Yeah. I think of stonewalling, because I think when you throw in a guilt trip, I don't know if you're just trying to be nasty or what your goal is, but also I think of emotional flooding. We've talked about that in the stonewalling episode, shutdown mode. And what emotionally flooding is like it's a physical and physiological. Sorry, same thing, right?
Physical and
psychological.
I liked how that sounded, though.
Psychological and physiological. Those are different. Both of those. And
both big words.
So you're being overwhelmed, and your body has a physical reaction as well as your mind, but you go into the fight or flight. So for those who are about to flight, what you do is you just close down. And that's either you get on your phone, you look away from someone, you physically leave, which I have experienced.
Yeah.
So if you're experiencing someone stonewalling or you are doing it, what you taught us was to stop. Because I think one of the main points you say is if you can't communicate well, then you shouldn't be communicating. So just stop the communication. It's not going to be productive. stop it, but then often we just stop and like never come back to it,
Yeah.
which I think
Yeah.
is why we have all these issues with our family, because we're just like, oh, we'll just let it go, and then we never have any resolve.
Right.
So
Maybe.
stop it,
Shout
but
out.
make a plan to come back. You have to come back to it
Yeah.
to resolve it. So stop, make a plan of when we're gonna actually talk about it, but you can't do it in the middle of being flooded because you're so overwhelmed
Yeah.
and you're shutting down. So then you need to stop thinking about it, which this is the hardest one.
Yeah,
for
the
me.
rumination.
The rumination, because I just literally am like, oh, well, this is where they were wrong. This is what I should have said. This is what I'm
It's
going
the
to say
re-
next.
that's- the
And
replay.
I just like go down
Yeah.
I start doing like an argument and building my debate, basically.
Your case.
What,
Yes.
Yeah, my case, what I'm going to say next. So don't do that.
Don't do what. Don't be
do
like
what
Teighlor.
I always do, yeah. So stop it, make a plan when we're coming back, don't keep thinking about it, and then go do self-care. Go for a walk, read a book. If you're like me, watch The Office. Like, take a break.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then really come back to the communication and have the resolve. But
Okay, so you separate your goal from this is like when you get in a guilt trip or get where someone gets flooded like that or freezes or shuts down or that kind of body movement you did, I think is helpful to remove yourself and not. I think it's the replay is rumination, right?
Yeah,
So not to
going
like
over
go
it,
over it.
yeah.
Okay.
But
That's
also,
hard.
you can do this if you're the person experiencing the stonewalling. So you can
Okay.
say like, hey, like I can see we're not having a productive conversation right now. Like,
Yeah.
let's take a break and let's come back to it in an hour. Do you want to go for a walk?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Help the person
Yeah,
get a pathway
offer
out
it
of
to
it.
them.
Yeah.
If maybe they don't know how to get out of stonewalling themselves.
And I was going to ask you, what was the key you talk about, I think in that episode, if I'm remembering right, that those have to be neutral. So you can't do like, I can tell you're obviously not going to be good at this conversation right now.
Suck right now with your
Right?
communication.
I
I can
can
tell.
have
No,
somebody
here's
give you
how a
little-
family member would say it. I can see you're falling apart right now.
Yeah, no, but seriously,
like,
right?
what?
New guilt trip.
But isn't there,
Yeah, a second extra bonus guilt trip.
what's that lesson though that about how do you do it in a neutral, like non-threatening way to somebody so they want to re-engage with you?
Yeah.
I mean, you could always blame it on yourself, right? Like, I'm feeling like we're not progressing in a positive way. And
Yeah.
you bring it back on I language.
Or even I think we need a break, right?
From the relationship?
from
We were on
from the
the
conversation. Yeah, right. So let's get back to the heavy communicator, because one of the things that I was thinking about when we're talking about solving this is this idea that heavy communicator says these messages. I wish I had the luxury to sit around all day, or I wish I could fill in the blank, right? But I have to do all the work, or I have to do all the dishes. And I think we can do some planning ahead of time. If you hear those messages and you think to yourself, oh, that sounds exactly like my fill in the blank. I don't know if it's going to be mom, but that sounds exactly like, her or him. Then maybe start thinking about having conversations before you arrive about where it can go wrong. So if you hear the message that I never get help with the dishes, or I wish I could sit around, you could go to that person and say, you mentioned last year that you wanted to have more time to sit. Is there something I can do that'll give you that time? And asking that ahead of time.
Actually be willing to help. So you have to think about...
You have to be willing,
Yeah.
but you'd want the relationship.
Yes,
So
yeah.
theoretically, you're willing to actually help
So you
things.
want to have that communication before the event. with
I
that
think if
person.
you listen to these messages and you say, gosh, they sound so familiar. I've heard like that exact thing said by this family member. Then I would say, if that's the case, you know already what to talk about in preparation.
Yeah.
If the person says, why do I have to make all the food? And you hear that message a lot, why not? You just had Thanksgiving holiday, but now we're going into another set of holidays for many of you. What can you bring? What can you do to ease the workload? Are there things I can do, the day before that will be helpful to you?
Yeah.
And if that heavy communicator is like, oh, no, I got it.
Then that's their choice.
Yeah.
And then do you just acknowledge, like, do you remember when I offered to help you and you didn't want to?
I mean, you
Or-
can.
Yeah, that's a little
Reverse
Yeah.
guilt trip back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a little
No, I mean, I don't know that I'd say let's get a bully stick and hit them back with it. But what I would say is I think that gets you out of the guilt trip, I think. If somebody says, I wish I could sit, I wish I could take the day off, I wish I could just eat and not put in the work or whatever, then I think if you offered and you honestly tried to ahead of time help that and the person still doesn't want help, I think the guilt goes away. At least does for
you,
me.
You don't feel
Yeah.
guilt.
I
but
feel
they might
less
try
because
to
I'm
just-
like,
they just still might try to give it to
Yeah.
you. But you
So
just
heavy
receive it.
communicators also need to lean in this year.
well, and that's a good question to say, okay, so let's say you're hearing these and you're saying that sounds like
That's
me.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I'm the one that says this kind of thing. Maybe start thinking about the reverse of that, which is asking for help or asking for participation in ways that your messages talk about,
Yeah.
and communicating that to people instead of having the negative feelings maybe at the end and then saying these messages. And let's be honest, we say things we don't mean, and so we hear it come out of our mouth, and that's not to have anyone feel bad about that. It's just to say, if you hear that, that's data that something maybe needs to change.
Data.
You know, I like to say data
Data.
whenever I can, like
Planning
every podcast.
and data.
Every podcast, I'm going to try to put planning in and data as often as I can. But I heard this quote that I think would be a good one to kind of wrap this up and to think about and to say, okay, at the end of the day, I can't change yesterday. That's the quote, right? I can't change yesterday. So one of the things that you and I might do is we might still, because we care so much about this person who's giving us the guilt trip, we might say, I wish that it was nicer between us, or I wish they didn't feel like saying these things to me. And we can almost get self-guilting, so to speak, right? We can start putting ourselves on that guilt trip.
Yeah.
And what I would say is, since you can't change yesterday, then the only thing left is to change today or tomorrow, right? And so that's where we start to say, okay, so I can collect the data, and make the plan.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Go team.
that's
Go
right.
team, go team, yay.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
Once again, thank you for joining us today. Please remember to rate, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And thank you for listening to Asking for a Friend.
Let us know what you thought of the episode. Our email is hello@afafpodcast.com. This show is for educational purposes only and is copyrighted. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. Thanks for listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc.